Today I am introduced about artificial neural network. Artificial neural network is a machine learning approach that models human brain and consists of a number of architecture neurons. Neurons in ANN stand to have fewer connections than biological neurons. Each neuron in ANN receives a number of inputs, and activation functions is applied to those inputs which result in activation level of neurons. Output value of the neurons. An artificial neural network is specified by neuron model, the information processing unit of a neuron network. An architecture, a set of neurons and links connecting neurons. Each link has a weight. A learning algorithm used for training the neuron network by modifying weights in order to module a particular learning task correctly on the training example. The aim is to obtain a neural network that is trained and generalized well. It should behave correctly on new instance of learning task. Structure of artificial neural network. Inputs layer, hidden layer, output layer, and last one, output. Input layer is a text in the data like an image or a sentence. Hidden layer, where the thinking happens by finding patterns. And last, output layer gives us the final result like a prediction or detection. Types of ANN. First is free forward neural network. Second, convolutional neural networks. And third, recurrent neural networks. First is free forward neural network. Free forward neural networks are a form of artificial neural networks where without framing any cycles between layer or nodes means input can pass through those nodes within the hidden level to the output nodes. Input layer. The input layer consists of neurons that receive the input data. Each neurons in the input layer receives of the feature in data. Architecture. Made made of analyze with understandable flow of data from input through hidden and the output layer. Training. Backpropagation is often used during training for a main aim in reduce the prediction error. Application. In visual and voice recognition, NLP, financial, hosting and recommending system. FN free forward network structure. Input layer, hidden layer, output layer. Input layer works is the input layer consists of neurons that receive the input data. Each neurons in the input layer represent the feature of the input data. Hidden layer is work. One or more hidden layers are placed between the input and output layer. Those layers are responsible for training the complex pattern in the data. Each neuron in a hidden layer applies a weighted sum of inputs follow a nonlinear activation function. Last is output layer. Out, the output layer provides the final output of the network. The number of neurons in this layer corresponds to the number of classes in a classification problem or the number of outputs in a regression problem. Convolution neural network. Convolution neural network structured is focused on processing the grid type data like image and videos by using convolution. layers, filtering, driving the patterns, and spectacle hierarchies. Key concepts: utilizing convolution layer, pooling layer, and fully connected layer. Applications used for classification of image, object detection, medical imaging analysis, automations driving and visualization in augmented reality. It is a structure for convolutional neural network. Input layer, convolution layer, max pooling layer, dense layer, and then output layer. Third is a recurrent neural network. Recurrent neural networks handle sequential data in which the current output is the result for previous inputs by looping over themselves to handle internal state memory. Architecture con- contains correct connections that enable feedback loops for processing sequence. Challenges: problems such as a Washington gradient become apparent since they limit the mode detector ability to compulsory compact independence on a long scale. Applications: language translation, open-ended text classification, ones-to-ones instructions, and time series predictions are its applications. It is structure for randomness. Advantages of artificial neural networks. Artificial neural networks have a ability to private the data to be processed in parallel, which means they can handle more than one task at the same time. Artificial neural networks have been each instance. This means that the loss of one or more calls or neural networks influence the performance of artificial neural networks. Artificial neural networks are used to store information on the networks so that even in the absence of a data pair, it does not mean the network is not generating result. Artificial neural networks are gradiently been broken down, which means that they will not suddenly stop working, and those networks are gradually being broken down. We are able to train artificial neural network that these networks learn from past events and make decisions. Disadvantages of artificial neural networks. As we mentioned before, that ANNS arms happening along with the extension of parallel processing, and so they need process that support parallel processing so that ANNs depends on the hardware. Since it's similar to the functionality of the human brain, we may not be able to determine what is the proper network structure of an artificial neural network. Not only not only do artificial neural networks but also the statistical models can be traveled with only numeric data, so it makes the very difficult for artificial neural network to understand the problem statement. When an artificial neural network that provides a solution to the problem statements that we really don't know on what basis it will give the solution, and this time NN is not a reliable. Thank you.